hammer v nail.
Pushing.
Oh, we're off.
Oh, yes.
Well, we are going to be taking a look at a hammer today, but maybe not one quite that big. Welcome to Flynndogg Woodwork. Today, I've got 5 unique tools that I just got from my shop, and I haven't unboxed any of these tools, so let's unbox them together and see if they're any good. So we're going to be all over the place in today's video, and that's because, once again, yes, I Googled deep and I found a bunch of tools that I thought would be interesting to check out. We're going to take a look at things like hammers, push blocks, and squares, and everything in between today. And as I said in the intro, I haven't unboxed any of these tools, so we may get a couple of duds in this video. But we also might get a couple of winners. So let's start talking about our first tool and why I purchased it.
Pucker up, boys! It's hammer time!
Hammers. Yes, our first item is a hammer. And if you're like me, you probably have a ton of different types of hammers in your shop. You probably have the old-fashioned kind. You may also have a couple of rubber mallets, or you might have a wooden mallet that's almost too nice to use. And unlike what most people think about hammers and woodworking, these tools are rarely used to drive in nails. Instead, I find myself using a hammer to coerce a piece of wood into the proper position when I'm doing something like a glue up. And because of that, rarely do I pick up the old-fashioned hammer, as the head on this hammer is harder than the wood itself. And if you're like me, you'll find that half-moon indentation from the head of your hammer on many of your earlier projects. So we very quickly learned to use hammers or mallets with softer heads that are firm enough to push our wood into place without leaving a scar. And our first tool today is all about having a hammer with the flexibility to have different hardness levels on that hammer head. So let's take a look at this first tool and see if it's any good. So our first tool is the Hannah Tools Ball Peen Hammer. Let's take a look at this and see how it works. Now, my initial reaction to this tool is that it looks like any other hammer, with the exception of the striking surfaces. As you can see, there's a void on either side of the hammer, and that void is filled with what's inside this bag. And what's inside this bag really makes this hammer unique. Inside that bag, you'll find 3 hammer heads along with a metal strip, and each one of these hammer heads has a different hardness level. The black is the hardest, and this can be used for driving in nails or metal processing. The orange is the medium level, and this can be used for woodworking joints or assembling furniture. And lastly, the white is the softest, and this can be used for assembling softwood furniture. Before we dig into those hammer heads, let's talk about the structure of the hammer itself. The first thing that I noticed about this hammer is that it's got a little bit of heft to it, and that's because it's got ball bearings inside the structure of the hammer head. So we'll at least have a shot maraca if this doesn't work out as a hammer.
Love playing the maracas. They're so fun.
Next, let's talk about this little metal strip. Since the hammer can only hold 2 of these heads at one time, you're always going to have one that needs to be held in storage. And if we look at the back of the hammer heads, you'll see a little magnet, and these attach directly to that metal strip. And the magnets on these heads are quite strong. You can see I can hold up the entire structure with just one magnet. You'll also notice a little hole at the very top of the metal strip so that you can hang this up with a nail. So how do the hammer heads attach to the hammer body? Well, it's a combination of a ribbed friction fit along with a magnetic hold. If we take a look at the hammer head, you'll see there's a little rib here, and this will slide right over the rib on the hammer.
Live for her pleasure.
This, along with a magnet, will hold this head firmly into place. So you'll take your head, place it into position, and give it a whack. Once you have one side installed, you repeat the process on the other side. And just like that, you have a dual-sided hammer with 2 levels of hardness. And I can tell you, these heads aren't going anywhere. They're in there very securely and they're tightly fit. But what if you want to switch one of those hammer heads out to a different level of hardness? Well, that's where this metal strip comes back into play. If we look at the end profile of the hammer, you can see the hammer heads have a little lip. If we rest our metal strip right up against that lip, this allows us to hit a surface to loosen that head. So by holding that metal strip into place with our thumb, we can knock that head right off. Then it's just a matter of grabbing a different head and giving it a whack.
And if I ever catch you whacking in here again, I'm gonna hog tie you.
So what do I think? Well, I think it's a pretty cool idea. I do feel like this is a high quality product and it's very well made. And I just like checking out unique tools and seeing how they work. But the question is, will I actually change out those hammer heads? And for me, I suspect not. I've got the orange and the white on this hammer now, and I suspect it will be on there for quite some time. But if you are a person that has limited space or maybe carries around 3 of these hammers in your toolbox, this might be a great option for you. And even if I don't switch out those hammerheads very often, it's still going to get some use in my shop and might be a better option than having 2 of these larger mallets. Well, that takes us through our first item of the day. Now let's talk about our second item, which has everything to do with shop safety over at the table saw. So we've all done it before. I know you've done it, and if you say you haven't, I know you're lying. We start to make a cut and push it through the table saw, and then all of a sudden you realize that that push stick is just out of reach. So we go ahead with a cut, praying that our guardian angels aren't on vacation this week. Now your cut may not have been as extreme as what I just showed, but any cut that gives you any sort of apprehension whatsoever should absolutely not be done. That is, of course, unless you want to kick that dream of being a famous rock and roll guitarist out the door. Now I've tried to combat this problem by having multiple push sticks everywhere around my table saw. Now there's nothing wrong with this, and if this is what you're doing, keep it going. This is way better than having 9 fingers. But even so, sometimes having multiple push sticks still doesn't solve the problem. So why not have a push stick that can have a home base where it lives that's always within reaching distance of wherever you make your cuts? Well, that's where this next item comes into play. Let's go check it out. So this next item is the Magswitch SavR push block. Let's unbox this and see what it's all about. So inside the box, you're only going to get 2 things. You're going to get the base plate as well as the push block itself. And you can see the push block is made out of MDF. Now this push block has the boot design, which is one of my favorite designs for push blocks. In fact, I even incorporated it into my shocker push block that I made a couple of years ago. It's that heel of the boot and the sole of the foot that really give you unrivaled support as you push your workpiece through the table saw. And if we take a look at the bottom of the push block, you can see there's a notch cut into it that runs down the entire length of that push block. Since the body of this push block is made out of MDF and is attached with 2 screws, if you don't like the placement on the left-hand side of the handle, you can undo the 2 screws and place it on the right-hand side. If we look at how the handle is offset from the push block, you can see how it cradles your fence so that you can create those really thin rips. So the basic design of this push block is really as good as any other push block I've seen out there. But that doesn't even get into what the selling point was on this tool for me. Let's take a look at the base that came with this tool. If we look at the base of the tool, you can see there's a couple of notches that are cut out on the very top. If we flip the base around, you can also see there's a couple of strips of 3M double adhesive tape. Quick aside here, I remind you that this tool is made by Magswitch. So that metal plate attaches to the plastic bottom with 3 very strong magnets so that you can place this push block wherever you want on your table saw. So if we go back to the top of the base, you can see that the notches coincide with the base of the push stick. Therefore, you can slide your push stick right into the base of the tool. And this base makes a push block storage solution that you can place right on the top of your table saw fence. Your fence will just need to be 2 1/4 inches wide for this base to fit. So you can peel off those adhesive strips on the back and place the base on the desired position on your fence. Once your base is in place, you'll always know where your push block is. And with everything at your fingertips, you can be assured you're no longer making those sketchy cuts. Well, I have to say, I really like this one. I know this one's going to get a lot of use in my shop. Well, that takes us through our first 2 items, and now it's time to start talking about our third item. So I know exactly why I purchased this next tool, and that's because of Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos?
You all know that Amazon starts to recognize your shopping patterns and then gives you recommendations based on your order history. And I guess I've been buying a lot of squares lately.
Yes, you have.
As I've been seeing this recommendation from Amazon for no less than 6 months. So I finally caved in and I thought I'd give it a look so that we can all check it out together. But before we check out this next item, I ask you to do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and leave a comment. It really does help out this small woodworking channel. Also, as a reminder, I always leave links in the description below, so if any of the tools in any of my videos interest you, you can go check them out for yourself in the description below. Also, I know a lot of you have shared that you enjoy the t-shirts that I wear, so I've created a website so that you can go check out similar t-shirts for yourself. Not only will you be able to buy some fun t-shirts and accessories, but you'll also be able to check out some of my top tool picks that I'll update regularly. So check out www.flynndogwoodwork.com, that's FlyNNDOGG woodwork.com, to see some of these fun accessories and some of my tool picks. Just know that this website is a work in progress and should be fully operational in late spring. Now let's get back to that tool that Amazon hooked me on. So this tool is the MC Square 150 made by Milescraft. Let's take a closer look. Not only does this tool sound like a rapper from the late 80s,
Bust it.
but it also comes in two different sizes. It comes in a 12-inch as well as a 6-inch. And I first want to talk about price with this red square. At today's pricing, this square is less than $9, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than any square you see here. However, this is a framing square, so I intend on using this for rough layout on some of my smaller projects. So what can we use this square for? Well, let's take a look at some of its onboard features. First off, this tool's got a lip, which is something that I always look for in a square. Not only that, but it's completely reversible, and it's got reference markings from the top of the lip as well as the bottom of the lip. It also has scribe holes, not detailed scribe holes, but scribe holes at every 1/4 of an inch. And I'll be honest, I really like the size of these scribe holes. They're a little bit larger than most scribe holes that allow you to put your larger utensils in, but they come to a point so that you can make sure that your measurements are accurate. And I've run a couple of tests on those scribe holes with this square and compared it to the Woodpecker's 642. And you can see with the lines on the right with the Milescraft versus the lines on the left with the Woodpeckers, there's hardly any difference whatsoever. So now that we know that those scribe holes are accurate, there's a couple of other features that we also need to take a look at. And these have to do with the diagonal hash marks on the tool. You can see there's markings for 30 degrees as well as 45 degrees. So you can quickly make those markings and connect the two dots so that you can have your 45 or 30 degree angles. And when we compare that 45 degree marking with the delve square, you can see it's right on point. There's also other angle markings. They're not as convenient as the ones with the hash marks, but they are available to use. And these angles reference the crotch of the square, and they go at every 5 degrees, running from 0 all the way up to 90 degrees. And lastly, you can easily draw a circle with this square, well over 8 inches in diameter. By placing a nail in the pivot point, you can use any of the scribe holes to create any circle you need. But more importantly than any of its functions, we need to do the final test, which is to see if this square is actually square. So we'll strike a line, flip it over, and test it again. And that looks perfect. So for a tool that's less than $9 with all this functionality and accuracy, I'm pretty impressed. And there's one other thing I like about this tool. This is a tool where I have no tool fear. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but some tools are so expensive that I hesitate to use them on a daily basis. Some tools are so expensive that I'm afraid to actually use them. What happens if I drop my woodpeckers on the floor? So a lot of times I'll grab the cheaper tool. And that's really kind of pathetic in my opinion. You really shouldn't be afraid to grab a tool because it's so expensive. And that's why I always try to find cheaper alternatives. Let me know in the comments if you have any tools that you have a tool fear over. Well, that takes us through our first 3 items and only 2 more left to take a look at. Our next item has everything to do with lasers. So 3D lasers are something that I never imagined that I'd appreciate in my woodworking shop, let alone actually own, as the big boys Makita, Milwaukee, and DeWalt sell these tools for well over $500 and they can go for as much as $800. But as it turns out, there's a lot of third-party brands out there that are putting out some quality 3D laser levels that are self-leveling. And this is one that I thought was worth taking a look at, as it retails for less than $160, which is a fraction of the price of the big boys. And it's got an extra laser that I haven't seen in any 3D laser that I own. Plus it's got a cool name. You'll know what I'm talking about if you're a guitar player. So this tool is the Takamine 4D laser level. Let's take a closer look and see what's inside this case. So inside this case, you can see that this tool comes with a lot of accessories. You can see the tool itself along with a bracket. It comes with a remote, a battery, a tripod, as well as a tripod mount. This tool also comes with a charger, which I didn't have included in that case because I was charging that battery. Before we dig into the structure of the 4D laser itself, let's take a look at some of the accessories that came with this tool. First off, I'm very impressed with the different ways that you can mount this tool. The first and easiest way is to attach this thing to a tripod using the tripod mount on the bottom. Another way to use this tool is to use this magnetic bracket. This attaches to any magnetic surface and you can slide the tool right into the top of it. Then you can make micro adjustments with the little knobs on the side to make sure that you're completely level. This tool also comes with a mini tripod with 3 pointed legs. This allows you to place the tool right on top of any tabletop surface and screw in the top just like you would with any other tripod. Next, let's take a closer look at that remote. The remote couldn't be more simple. It's got 2 buttons on top for the horizontal and vertical lasers. It also has a plus and minus button to adjust the brightness of the lasers. With this tool, you also get 1 battery along with a charger that uses a USB-C port. If we look at the physical construction of the 4D laser itself, you'll realize it's just as simple as the remote that it came with. If we look at the very back of the tool, you can see the slot where you can attach the battery. Once the battery is attached, you can turn the tool around to reveal the on and off switch or the lock and the unlock button. It's that button that will allow you to turn the lasers on and begin using the tool. If we look at the side of the tool, you can see the control panel that allows you to turn on both the vertical lasers as well as the horizontal lasers. So what makes this a 4D laser versus a 3D laser?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Well, if you're familiar with 3D lasers, you're probably aware that there's usually a laser on the side, a laser in the front, and a laser on the top. But this tool actually has a laser on the bottom. So what's the value of having an extra horizontal laser? Well, let me show you one example. Having an extra laser can be perfect for lining up things like outlets. If I add the first laser, you can see it lines up with the bottom of the outlet. If I add the second laser, you can see it lines up with the top of the outlet. But I can also add both lasers for an easy readout of where the top and the bottom of the outlet should be. And you can have this run around the entire perimeter of your room, making sure that all your outlets are perfectly aligned. And if I go to the opposite wall of my shop, I'm pleasantly surprised that all my outlets are perfectly aligned. Now I had the lights off so that you could easily see that laser, but this laser is bright enough to see in the daylight. And if we look at this wall with the lights on, you can see the top 2 lasers are from the Takamine, while this bottom line, which is very hard to make out, is from one of my other 3D lasers. And just like with most 3D laser levels, this thing has a self-leveling capability and flashes at you once it gets out of level. So I'm very impressed with this 4D laser level. This is by far the most powerful laser level that I have in my shop. Plus, it's just a fraction of the price of most other laser levels. And I really like the accessories that came with this tool, especially the tabletop tripod as well as the magnetic bracket that allows you to place it in odd-shaped areas. Well, that takes us through 4 out of our 5 items today, and only one more thing left to look at. Our last item is made by a manufacturer that I've come to love in woodworking. And that manufacturer is Milescraft. In fact, that red square that we took a look at earlier was also made by Milescraft. The next thing about our last tool is just like that red square, this tool is inexpensive. In fact, this thing is less than $6. But it carries a couple of features that I think are worth having in the shop. So let's not waste any time and take a look at our last item. So our last tool is the Milescraft centerfinder. Let's unbox this and take a closer look. So this tool is all about simplicity. It only comes with the centerfinder itself along with a number 2 pencil. Let's start off and take a look at the centerfinder and let me show you a couple of nice features that are incorporated into its design. First off, if we take the centerfinder and turn it to its side, you can see a small hole where you can place your pencil when it's not in use. If we look at the bottom of the tool, you'll notice one of the feet has a small magnet. This is perfect for keeping everything together when your tool's not in use. If we look on one side of the tool, you'll notice little steps, and these are used to make offsets for things like picture frames and windows. And these steps have 1/16 inch increments, allowing trim reveals of up to 5/8 of an inch. If we look at the top of the centerfinder, you'll notice a little notch, and this is where you place your pencil. Once your pencil's in place, you'll rotate the tool until both legs hit the side of your workpiece, and then you'll simply push the tool back and forth to create your perfect center line. And this centerfinder can accommodate wood as thick as 2.5 inches wide. And on the opposite end, there really isn't a piece of wood that's too thin for this tool. So for less than $6, I think it's worth picking up this simple little tool to make your life just a little bit more easy. Well, thanks a lot for joining me today on checking out these 5 new tools I got from my shop. I had a lot of fun today, and I'm sure each one of these tools will get some playtime in the near future. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and leave a comment. It really does help out this small woodworking channel. Until next time, take care as always.